I've got some homework for you today. In the Valley of Decision, or that comment section, is part of the story too. Welcome to another installment in the Over My Shoulder Bible Study series. These brief video Bible studies supplement the sermon that I preach each Sunday here with the Missouri Street Church of Christ in Baytown, Texas. Of late, we've been camped out in Luke's Gospel, particularly in the Sermon on the Plain, Jesus' sermon that's recorded in Luke chapter 6, verse 20 through 49. This sermon plays a huge role in Luke's Gospel in that it's the first extended record we have of the things that Jesus preached and taught. He takes his closest disciples close to him, and he tells them exactly what it means to be a disciple. He tells them the core, the essence of the cost of paying the price of being a disciple. And others overhear this as well, a large crowd. Now, how will people respond to Jesus' sermon? That is, what is their reaction to these words of God through his Son, Jesus Christ? And that's what chapters 7, 8, and 9, the following chapters, really spend their time with. Luke chapter 7, 8, and 9 is composed of, well, depending on how you break up the text, about 18 to 24 different thought units. They're not merely good stories that tell something about the ministry and life of Jesus. They're there for a purpose. And their purpose is to give us a condensed, concentrated collection of various reactions to Jesus. As people hear what Jesus has to say, they react to it. They cannot help but respond. You're going to have to do something with Jesus, even if it's just ignoring him. Luke chapter 7, 8, and 9 record a number of responses or reactions to Jesus' words. After that section in Luke 7, 8, and 9, very quickly what begins is what's known as the travel section, or the journey to Jerusalem. It starts here in Luke chapter 9, verse 51. When the days drew near for him, that is Jesus, to be taken up, he set his face to go to Jerusalem. And then all the way to chapter 19, beginning in verse 28, when he's going on ahead and going on up to Jerusalem, it's in that section in between, those 10 plus chapters, that we see Jesus show and tell what it means to be a follower of God. He exemplifies what it means to pay the price to do his Father's will. And he continues to teach his disciples and any who will listen what it means to be a follower of him. In this time of show and tell that follows this valley of decision, this choice, what will we do with Jesus in Luke 7, 8, and 9, we're called to reflect on our own situation. These aren't merely ancient words about how people long ago reacted to Jesus. They're there recorded for us still today so that we can identify with these things. Have I asked myself this question about Jesus? Have I thought about Jesus this way? If this is the way I'm reacting to Jesus, is that reasonable in light of the evidence, etc.? If you go through Luke 7, 8, and 9, and this is your homework, do just that. Read Luke 7, 8, and 9, and have a pencil and paper or pen and paper handy, and take note of all the times some response or reaction to Jesus' words or ways is recorded. I don't claim to have made a comprehensive list, but I counted 37 myself. That's just in 3 chapters. You won't find any place in all the Bible that gives such a concentrated collection of thoughts about who Jesus is by a variety of people than Luke 7, 8, and 9. Let me give you just a very few examples, and all of these are positive examples. Here in Luke chapter 7, verse 11 through 17, we're given the account of how that Jesus raises a young man from the dead. And as he does so, notice what's said in the run-up to that. He, that's Jesus, went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd went with him. That's a response to Jesus. That's a reaction to Jesus. They've heard what Jesus has to say. Now they want to hear more. They've been with him and they've seen some of what he's done. They want to see more. They need to be told and shown what life is about through Jesus Christ. And so this is in the record not merely as a historical note. Oh yeah, there were a lot of people there. It's there for us to consider that a number of people reflect on who Jesus is. It made a difference to them. Perhaps he should make a difference to me. Well, then the account continues in this miracles work. Jesus raises a young man from the dead. Notice again how the response is recorded by Luke, the author of this gospel. Fear seized all of them, and they glorified God. And they said, a great prophet has risen among us, and God has looked favorably on his people. And of course, they can't contain these things to themselves. It goes viral. This word about him spread throughout Judea and all the surrounding country. You can't help but react to Jesus in some way. Chapter 8, verse 1 through 3 describes another way of reacting to Jesus. Jesus and his disciples are going about preaching, doing the will of God, sharing word of the kingdom of God. And who supports them? Well, we're told that there were some women with them. Among them, there was this one who had 7 demons cast out of her, Mary Magdalene. And there was one that was the wife of Herod's steward, Chuza. Her name was Joanna. And there was also Susanna and many others. And what did they do? They provided for them out of their resources. Their response, their reaction to Jesus was, I want to see this ministry continue. I want to help you in some way. And they open up their purse or wallet, per se, and they say, here's my money. How can you use this? How can this help support you? What a wonderful response to Jesus. You know the story of how Jesus stills the storm. He's in a boat with his disciples out on the Sea of Galilee, and he's fallen asleep, and the storm comes up, and he's still asleep, and the disciples come to him and wake him up. Hey, we're about to drown. Can you do something here? You can read the story here in chapter 8, verse 22 through 25. He gets up, and he's calm and says, where's your faith? That's after he has calmed the storm. Notice their reaction. They were afraid and amazed. What an understatement. And they began to say to one another, who then is this, that the winds and the waves obey him? Indeed, a good question. Well, there are other examples we could give. We'll just give one more. Here in chapter 9 in verse 20, you recall when Jesus is praying, and then he interrupts his own prayer, and he turns to his disciples who are nearby and asks him, who do people say I am? And they share some of the things that they've heard people say. And then Peter speaks up and says, you are the Messiah of God. You can read that in Luke chapter 9, verse 18 through 20. You're the Christ, the one that was promised. You've arrived. You're the King that was promised. You've come. Well, the journey to Jerusalem, that road to Jerusalem with Jesus, it begins shortly thereafter this. And the point is that journey will be commentary on this statement. Is Jesus truly the Messiah? Was Peter right? If so, could you build your life around this one, as Peter dared to do? All sorts of things come to mind here as we read the reactions and the responses of people to Jesus' words and ways. So, again, your homework. Read Luke 7, 8, and 9 through that lens. That is, pay close attention and take note of how people react when they encounter Jesus. And then having done so, pray about these matters and ask yourself, how will you react to Jesus? Grace and peace be with us all.